Throughout the evolution of NBA lineups, taller and larger frame players have developed a skill set of smaller players on the perimeter. Over time, these players have become the prototypical NBA wing that teams search for when building their roster. Sometimes these freak of natures never reach their full potential. It's a long process, but when they do, their production can end up being a game changer for franchises. The process to becoming that elite player on the perimeter has a series of steps that I think nearly every tall and large frame high potential wing will go through. But for now, I'm only going to highlight a few players that are each the past, the present, and the future of the NBA. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. The first stage is what I call growing pains. This is at the beginning of the player's career where they don't have many elements to their game yet. It's a time where they struggle to consistently create for themselves. Maybe they rely on their elite athleticism or being run off screens to score. This stage, however, is just a building block for what they are expected to pan out as a player. Players that have went through or are going through it include Jaylen Brown, Paul George, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and even newer guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Keegan Murray, Jabari Smith Jr., and Hornets rookie Brandon Miller. For a player that has went through all this, Jaylen Brown came out of college as a freak athlete with a good body who could mold into an all-around two-guard for the Celtics. During his rookie year in 2016, he only averaged 6 points and shot 34% from 3 and used his athleticism to stay on the court. He used straight line drives heavily due to his strength at such a young age. He endured this first stage for a few years until he ever became the player he is now. Another vet that's experienced these type of growing pains is Paul George. He came into the league at 6'9" with a nearly 7-foot wingspan. His rookie year he only averaged 7 points and 29% from 3, and his second year averaged only 12 points per game. His role offensively was a 3-and-D and had minimal creativity on the ball.
Because like I don't know what you shot your rookie year, but like
28, 29%.
Oh, okay, then probably wasn't that hard to switch it with me.
Well, I had nothing but time because my rookie year from my second year, like I was always just a corner guy. Like,
right.
It was funny talking about that because Swaggy P, that's the Swaggy P thing. I was a corner guy. So I was sticking the corner and like that was my role, just be a 3-and-D guy. Yeah, so right. I had like a ton of time that off season just work on my jumper. Like I got thousands of shots.
He relied on his size and athleticism and catch and shoot game early on. DeMar DeRozan also fits into this definition of a prototypical wing. Coming into the league in 2009, his offensive game wasn't even close to being as complete as it is today. He also relied heavily on his athleticism and straight line drives. He showed flashes of his jump shooting ability, but was overall a pure slasher early on. In the 2020 draft, Patrick Williams possessed potential to become an elite two-way player on the wing. The former 4th overall pick came into the league at 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan and had expectations that it would take a few years to reach his full potential. He has gone through this growing pain stage for multiple years now. Injuries have plagued him early on, which can attribute to a slow start offensively. Throughout these years, he has improved his three-point shooting, but he still lacks a handle and struggles creating for himself. He is a terrific defender, however, which adds some value onto the court. Although he still has not established a consistent on-the-ball game 3 years into his career, he showed signs last season that indicates he may get past his growing pain stage and break out.
You're not that bad. You're selling yourself short. Wait, clock, able to knock down the three. Trying to break down Okongwu. Fade away, jumper ball. Once again, missed another free throw until February. Right. He's sitting on 17 in a row. 3 in a row against 3 really good teams. Cleveland, Brooklyn, and then Boston on Christmas Sunday.
In the 2021 draft, Jonathan Kuminga probably had the most potential out of anyone in that class. He lacked a jump shot and perimeter game overall, but his pure athleticism and body gave him upside that the Warriors couldn't resist. Going into his 3rd season now, he still has not gotten past that growing pain stage, but I include him in this conversation because I believe one day, if it's in Golden State or somewhere else, he will round out into a complete wing. He's 6'7", 225 with a 7-foot wingspan and has all the tools to end up being an all-around offensive threat. For some of the newer guys, the 2022 draft brought in 2 college stars that have potential through the roof. Keegan Murray was known for his elite shooting at his size, but many had his ceiling a little lower due to him being slower and lacking a little athleticism. Keegan's rookie year consisted of many off-the-ball movements to get open and easy looks. He ended the year breaking the record for most threes made by a rookie and had a very solid postseason against the Warriors. His next jump is going to have to be creating for himself, and it looks like he's attacking that challenge, which we'll talk about more in the next stage. Jabari Smith Jr. is the next player from that 2022 class who many thought had superstar potential coming out of college. Going into his rookie year, he was known for his outside shooting, and many figured he'd make an immediate impact at all three levels due to his ridiculous 6'11" size. That was not the case, however, as he struggled at times offensively and shot 30% from 3. He relied on his size to get his shot off and often became stagnant with his catch and shoot game to put up numbers. But in the limited minutes this summer, it looks like he could be headed for a big second year. The last example of the growing pain stage is upcoming rookie Brandon Miller. Although he has not played a single official NBA game yet, his college game suggests that he'll be headed towards some growing pains as a young scorer. Miller is 6'9" and has all the tools to become elite offensively in Charlotte. However, he is not sharp off the dribble in a physical setting, which is what the NBA is. He's elite off the catch and can be ran off screens, but in the limited summer league action we've seen, he struggles to finish through contact and be efficient off the dribble. Throughout everything I've said thus far, this stage is normal for these type of players, and it honestly is necessary for the growth into this second stage I'll get into. The second stage is what I call the Toolkit stage. This is where the player finally starts to put everything together offensively. They become more comfortable with the game and develop their own unique skill set. For these prototype wings, it may take longer than others to get to this point, but when they do, it's crazy to see. For Jaylen Brown, he didn't fully find his skill set until around the 2019-2020 season. He started to be more comfortable with the ball and creating for himself and getting to his spots. He began to realize what his strengths were and didn't shy away from them. This is the time period where we saw Brown gain more confidence and comfortability with his handle as well.
So deep in his bag.
He became one of the few players in the league that kept the mid-range game in their arsenal. Here, he attacks the defender's top foot with a quick cross and spin to rise up for the midi. Next, in the post, he spins into a dribble step back and elevates again. Here, in the shallow corner, he gets a switch and again goes through the slow center's top foot for the lay. Lastly, the defender opens his hips and he uses the hezzy and attacks that for a big dunk. Paul George reached his breakout offensively around 2013. He rode the momentum from the previous playoff series versus LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh. This is the first time where people began to recognize the star he was becoming. He got comfortable at all three levels and embraced being the focal point of the offense. At this point, PG started getting to his spots almost effortlessly night in and night out. He started to create his own unique style offensively. In the post, he embraces the double team only to spin away from it and hit the fadeaway. Next, in the pick and roll, he attacks the drop coverage for the easy step back. Here, PG crosses towards that top foot and stops on a dime for the pull-up. Here again, he attacks the drop coverage with a snake dribble to get to a spot for the midi. And lastly, getting all the way to the block for the fake spin into another fader. DeMar DeRozan reached the Toolkit stage around 2013. He began to settle into his on-the-ball skills and develop his own unique game. This consisted of a lot of post-ups and work around the mid-range. His footwork evolved, and this helped him begin his stance as the king of the midi. Here, he recognized the delayed double team coming and fakes the turn to the left and turns over his left shoulder for the tough fade. Next is a simple elevated pull-up after recognizing the crowded paint. Showing off his elite footwork, he spins at the free throw line and takes only 2 steps after the gather for an easy jumper. Lastly, he sees the defender ready to stay attached after the screen, so he spins back into a one-dribble pull-up. This jump offensively will set DeRozan up for one of the deepest bags from a wing we have seen in today's game. This is also the stage that I expect Keegan Murray and or Jabari Smith Jr. to reach in the next few seasons. Murray especially has shown flashes in the limited summer league looks we got from him. First, he navigates through the double screen to get to the easy floater. Here he works through another double screen and slowly gets to a spot for the 15-foot jumper. This play, Keegan fights through the contact and calmly hits a tough fadeaway over 3 defenders. Lastly, he shows off his creativity and hits the step back. Jabari Smith Jr. has as well, but I do think it may take a little longer than Keegan Murray to reach this stage. In the post, he uses a quick step back out of a spin for a jumper. Here he recognizes the double team coming and pivots over that left shoulder for a fade. Lastly, he looks like he's getting his confidence off the dribble and uses the misdirection to create space off the 7-footer. After all these fine-tuning phases for these wings, they may get the opportunity to reach the peak of their scoring abilities during this third and final stage. The third and final stage is what I call the deep bag stage. This is where the player finally gets to that point where their offensive game has rounded out. They become masters at getting to their spots and are comfortable and confident against damn near every defender in the league. Some of the best players in the league are wings who are either at this stage or went through it before. Jaylen Brown reached the deep bag stage during the 2020-2021 season. Both his shot attempts and points per game increased by 4, all while maintaining his efficiency. This was, in my opinion, the start of his peak offensively and a time where he stamped himself as a star of the NBA. 3 years later, he has still sustained this level of play, as this past season he averaged a career-high 26.5 points and made All-NBA team for the first time. He has evolved at all 3 levels due to his strength and some of the best tough shot-making ability in the entire league. Here, he shows off his handle to get deep into the paint for an up and under lay. Next, he rejects the screen to get to the rim for another tough finish. Here, JB uses his body and gets straight to a spot for the midi. Next, he freezes Butler with the behind the back to get through that front foot for the finish. And lastly, showing off his confidence and improved creativity for the nasty bucket. Brown still has room to grow offensively, so I think it's fair to say that we can expect another jump in the future. Paul George began the peak of his game offensively once he arrived in OKC. He mastered the twitchiness on the ball and perfected scoring at all 3 levels. His creativity became almost one of one and he gained one of the deepest bags in the entire NBA. This jump with the Thunder really solidified himself as one of the best scorers in the league. That 2018 season, he averaged a career-high 28 points and finished second in the MVP race. His explosiveness and savviness, even after his horrific injury years prior, was a true testament of his hard work and overall potential coming out of college. Those talented years in OKC stayed consistent when he got to LA. The way PG continuously navigates through defenders to get the shots he wants is crazy to see. He regularly uses sudden movements like this to create space for jump shots. Here he uses a wraparound into a pound dribble for the step back. And lastly, he attacks the big and puts his body between the ball and the defender for the tough finish. Although his numbers have went down slightly, he still has that elite game offensively and is one of the best scorers in the NBA. Many say he became the true prototype NBA wing in today's game. For DeMar DeRozan, it took him a little longer to begin his peak offensively. Now in 2016, he averaged at that time a career-high 27 points per game, but in my opinion, this was not the best of DeRozan on offense. The beginning of that peak started towards the back end of his time in San Antonio in 2020. Although his numbers were down during this time, he began the process of completely cutting out the three-point shot and staying inside the arc. He completely transformed and refined his game. He then catapulted to the DeRozan we know today as the best mid-range shooter in the league. His first year in Chicago in 2021, he averaged nearly 28 points strictly shooting inside the mid-range and in the paint. This is by far the greatest version of DeRozan offensively. He mastered manipulating defenders and outsmarting opponents on that end. Here he hits the defender with a wraparound to walk right into a pull-up. In almost all DeRozan ISOs, he plays at his own speed to get the exact shot that he wants. He loves using a numerous amount of pump fakes just waiting for his defenders to bite. And what better way to top it off than a one-legged running three for the win. Past the age of 30, DeMar DeRozan mastered the final stage of scoring at the wing position. These 3 stages have many elements to them and are unique depending on the player that's attached to them. What we can learn from all this is that it takes time for these players to reach their potential and we all need to just be patient. I had a lot of fun making this video for y'all. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and I'll see you next video. Peace.